In the mid-2000s, rural West Bengal was a place of tight-knit agricultural communities where the rhythms of life were public and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. Geetanjali was a newlywed who had become a fixture of this village. She was known for her vibrant spirit, her singing, and her skill in the classical movements of Bharatanatyam dance. Her life ended abruptly and without explanation. In this era, rural villages rarely utilized forensics or autopsies for sudden illnesses. She was mourned, her death was attributed to natural causes, and her body was committed to the earth. To honor her devotion to her art, Geetanjali was buried with her gungrus, the small metallic bells that had rung out during every one of her performances. The village attempted to move on from the loss of a healthy young woman, but the lack of a clear cause created a void in the community. Soon, a series of unexplained events began to pull the village back toward her grave. Within weeks of the funeral, locals began reporting a woman's silhouette sitting perfectly still on top of the fresh mound of dirt in the middle of the night. These sightings quickly became more active. Witnesses described the figure rising and walking in continuous, rhythmic circles around the cemetery grounds. The presence grew so consistent that the village eventually abandoned the shortcut road running past the graveyard, leaving the area in total isolation. These occurrences stood apart from the typical ghost stories of the region. They were the first indications of a specific truth that was refusing to remain buried. The haunting eventually moved into the village proper, focusing on two adjacent properties, Kavya's home and her neighbor Saurabh's house. Kavya's family reported a pervasive scent of mustard oil drifting past their windows at night, always stopping at Saurabh's door. Saurabh was an older student who lived alone, one of the few villagers who attended the same music and dance classes as Geetanjali. Inside his home, Saurabh experienced the haunting firsthand. He reported hearing Geetanjali's voice singing in his room at night, followed by the terrifying sensation of being violently slapped by an unseen hand. The ghost was manifesting through the specific details of Geetanjali's identity, her scent, her song, and her touch, all while focusing her attention on a single man. One night at Kavya's house, the family was startled by the sudden, sharp ringing of gungrus echoing from the dark courtyard outside. When Kavya and her sister looked out the window, they saw Geetanjali's spirit. She was out in the center of the yard, performing a full Bharatanatyam routine in the total darkness. As she danced, she ignored the girls entirely. Her eyes were fixed on the shared wall of Saurabh's house, her classical movements directed purely towards his home. The performance ended abruptly when the spirit charged directly toward the window, screaming a single sentence, "I was murdered." This verbal confession transformed the nature of the sightings. This was no longer a random haunting, but a direct attempt to bring a hidden crime to light. The following morning, Saurabh did not emerge from his home. Concerned neighbors eventually forced the door open and entered the silent house. Inside, they discovered Saurabh's body. He had been brutally beaten, and his teeth were found shattered and scattered across the floor. The room was covered in impossible evidence, bloody, bare footprints of a woman that tracked up the walls and traveled across the ceiling. Since the village had not acted on the sensory clues she provided, the entity had bypassed the living and delivered her own undeniable verdict. In the wake of this brutal resolution, the village turned to a local spiritual medium to investigate the history behind the violence. Through the investigation, a hidden motive surfaced. Geetanjali and Saurabh had been involved in a secret affair, which had led to an unplanned pregnancy. Fearing the social consequences and the damage to his reputation, Saurabh had poisoned Geetanjali, ending her life before the secret could be revealed. The nightly dancing, the scent of her oil, and the targeted haunting were the only methods left for a woman to expose her killing to a society that had already looked away. In rural communities where secrets are often guarded to protect a family's standing, a haunting can serve a specific purpose. It becomes a tool for justice, forcing the living to confront the truth of what has been buried.